Hello and welcome to another sealed deck building exercise. Today we're going to take a look at a new set, and that is Dragons of Tarkir. And I'm going to build a sealed deck with 3 Dragons of Tarkir and 3 Fate Reforged boosters. Usually the sealed format would be 4 Dragons of Tarkir boosters and 2 Fate Reforged, but I'm going to do 3 and 3 here just because I have those boosters available for me. So yeah, let's just dive right into it. Let's open one of each, starting with Fate Reforged. So that's the middle set. And as usual, I'm going to sort all the cards by color first, and then we'll go over them in more detail, starting with a Refocus. Abzan Sky Captain, Sultai Skullkeeper, Tassiger's Cruelty, Rakshasa's Disdain, Temur Battle Rage, Whisperer of the Wilds, Lightning Shrieker, Frontier Mastodon, Archers of Karsi. Fascination is our uncommon, Abzan's Kinguard, and our last uncommon is Wardscale Dragon, and our rare is Mob Rule. So a pretty powerful card in sealed. And we also get a Tranquil Cove. Alright, so a pretty decent first pack, I would say. Colors are pretty spread around, so don't know what will end up quite yet. So now let's open a Dragons of Tarkir booster. That's the new set. A world where the dragons rule and the Khans don't exist anymore. Or at least not the clans. So Kologan Skirmisher is our first card. A pretty nice dash card. Segmented Krotik, very solid. Megamorph guy, let's put him in the right pile. Atarka Afrit. Sibzik Icebreakers, Sprinting Warbrute, Ojutai Interceptor, another very good common, Champion of Arashin, CDC's Faithful, a Glaring Aegis, Virulent Plague, more of a constructed card. Scaleguard Sentinels. Our last uncommon is Warbringer. And our rare is a Stratus Dancer. Can go right into that Mono Blue Devotion deck. And we even get a foil. Don't know if you can see the shininess. It's a Hand of Silumgar, so just a common, but it looks pretty neat. So yeah, we got some good blue cards, I would say, out of this pack, but still our colors could go anywhere. Let's get these out of the way. So let's open a Fate Reforged booster once again. And we start off with a very solid Reach of Shadows, Aven Skirmisher, Douse in Gloom, Right into Being, Ancestral Vengeance, Grim Contest, Collateral Damage, Anok Guide, Great Horn Cruciok, Hunt the Weak, Reality Shift, Mardu Shadow Spear. Our last uncommon is a Jeskai Barricade, and our rare is a mythic rare, Shaman of the Great Hunt. Alright, that's a very good card, especially if you're temur. And wow, we even got a Bloodstained Mire instead of a land. That's pretty awesome. So we got our value, and that will go right into my EDH deck that I'm working on. And let's go for a Dragons of Tarkir booster. So yeah, so far the colors still look pretty even to me. No real pull towards any color. But yeah, let's just open another booster and see where we'll go. I would be happy to play this Shaman of the Great Hunt, so maybe we can go red-green or red-blue. And also get that mob rule in there. Alright. First card is a Servant of the Scale. Another Hand of Silumgar, this time no foil. Dragon Fodder. Coat with Venom, very good combat trick. Airy Bowmasters, very good common as well. Tormenting Voice featuring Eugene, the Spirit Dragon. Then we've got a Dirger Nemesis with Defender, but you can still attack with him once. Champion of Arashin. Glint. Misthoof Kirin, also known as the Rocket Goat. Shield High Dragon is our first uncommon. Dance of the Skywise. Last uncommon is a Gate Smasher. And our rare is a Kolaghan's Command, which is also pretty decent if you're in these colors. And a Swamp. Alright. Move on to the fifth booster, which will be Fate Reforged once again. We're shifting back and forth in time here, just like the storyline. Alright, starting off with a Sipsig Host. Another Aven Skirmisher. Ethereal Ambush. Rakshasa's Disdain. Alasha's Vanguard. Map the Wastes. Mardu Scout. Harsh Sustenance. Sandstep Outcast, another very good common. Temur Runemark. Break Through the Line. Channel Harm. Last uncommon is a Sipsig Mugdraggers. And our rare is a Shuyun, the Silent Tempest. Not bad. And we even get a Swiftwater Cliffs for our troubles. Alright, so blue looking better. Also saw some good white cards. So yeah, still not sure where we're heading here, but I guess we'll find out soon enough. Last booster, Dragons of Tarkir. Can still open a sweet card here. Starting off with a Vandalize. Silumgar Butcher. Anok Artillerist. Screamreach Brawler. Grave Purge. Kolaghan Storm Singer. Gurmak Drowner. Played this guy at the pre-release, was pretty sweet. Then we've got a Student of Ojdai. Updraft Elemental, Territorial Rock, not quite a wingmate rock. We've got a Scion of Ugin, Silk Wrap, good removal, and a Dragonloft Idol, and our rare is a Den Protector, also known as Maternal Witness. So that's a very good green card. And we got a Plains. Alright, so let's take a look now. So what I like to do now is go over every color, sorting the playable cards from the unplayable cards, so we have a clear picture what colors are deeper and have more playable cards in them. And once we've done that, we can try and build some decks with different color combinations, see how the curve looks, what the game plan would be like, and then compare them and see what comes out. So yeah, white looks pretty deep as far as I can tell. We've got a few very good flying cards, like the Dragons, the Captain, the Kirin, even the Outcast with the Spirit token. We've got some removal in Silk Wrap and Channel Harm, if you count that as removal. So yeah, a pretty decent color. So could definitely be one of our main colors. So let's take a look at blue. We see quite a few flyers, but other than that, it's not actually super deep. It's not as deep as white because it doesn't have as many quality creatures, but it can still offer some interesting things like the Shuyun or the Drowner, or perhaps the Stratus Dancer is pretty good, the Interceptor. So yeah, the color combination that has most flyers is going to be blue-white. So that can be a valid strategy, but I don't think blue and white here are quite deep enough, even the two of them combined. But I guess we'll take a look later. But yeah, for now blue looks alright, but certainly not exciting. So yeah, if we take a look at black, it is pretty deep. It's got a few decent removal spells, but again, nothing really exciting. So it's got a few, yeah, it's got a lot of defensive cards, I would say. It's got these two Hand of Silumgar, Code of Venom, it's got Reach, Douse, Ancestral, and the Butcher is also more of a removal spell, plus the Mug Draggers. So yeah, it's more of a slow color. So yeah, it's still pretty deep, but again, nothing really super exciting. It's the only color so far that has a lot of removal spells, which is important in sealed. So maybe this can be our support color, who knows. So yeah, taking a look at red, it's certainly a deck that wants to attack, wants to dash out its creatures, and it's pretty good at doing that actually. It's got a lot of haste, basically all creatures have haste in red. So yeah, it looks decent if we want to be aggressive. But looking at black, for example, that was not really an aggressive color. So maybe we would have to pair with blue or with white for the evasion. So taking a look at green, it offers us some fixing with Map the Waste and Anok Guide, some ramp with Whisper of the Wilds, some value with Den Protector, and Scaleguard Sentinel's pretty good. The Bowmaster is a good creature, Mastodon's fine, Krotik is good, Hunt Week is solid. So again, a pretty spread out pool, I would say, with some solid cards in every category. So yeah, green could certainly be one of our main colors. I think we can start by trying out perhaps a red-black aggressive deck with all those dash cards. Maybe there's something there. And if we see that's not the case, then we can perhaps try out some other combinations. Just because all the colors are so spread out, I'm not quite sure what combinations are going to be the best, since we don't really have the clans anymore, so we don't have those 3-color incentives to go for a certain deck. So yeah, I'm just gonna try and build a red-black deck, see how that looks, and then report to you in a bit. Alright, so this is how the red-black aggressive deck could look like. And I want to start off by saying that usually aggressive decks don't really succeed in sealed, just because people will play bigger creatures and you won't be able to attack through them. But I think this deck is aggressive enough that you can actually go under most decks or try to go wide at some point. So even if they have a few blockers, you're still going to be able to attack through them. So what does this deck have going for it? It's got a lot of aggressive and efficient early cards like Hand of Silumgar, Skirmisher's good, Mardu Scout can dash out and do some damage early. You've got Dragon Fodder for the one exploit card we're playing, but also just as a blocker, so you can use those dash cards to attack the opponent and have a few chum blockers in the Dragon Fodder, so the opponent can't really attack you back for as much. Then we've got some good 3-drops, so I put the Megamorphs in the 3-drop slot, the Brawler, another dash card, the Efreet, another Megamorph guy, as well as the Storm Singer, plus the Icebreakers, since in an aggressive deck you will more easily empty your hand before the opponent does, at which point this guy becomes pretty good. Then we've got in the 4-drop slot Alesha's Vanguard, just another dash card to combo with the Warbringer, which does play a pretty big role in this deck, reducing all the dash costs. Means if you have a few dash cards in your deck, you can dash this guy first, and then for just a few mana dash out some more creatures and deal a lot of damage out of nowhere. We've got Shaman of the Great Hunt, which in this deck is just a 4/2 with haste with the ability of giving creatures +1/+1 counters, which is still pretty good, even if we don't get to draw any cards with him. Then at the top of our curve we've got some removal and Silumgar's Butcher. We can sacrifice those early creatures or Dragon Fodder tokens. We've also got Reach of Shadows as removal. We've got the Warbrute as another sort of Lava Axe effect, or a guy that can trade with their bigger creatures. We also have Dousing Gloom as a removal spell. We've got Tormenting Voice to keep up on some card selection and in order to discard our bad cards in the late game. Temur Battle Rage to do a lot of damage out of nowhere, which this deck is trying to do. Then Ancestral Vengeance to clear small blockers so they don't slow you down. So we also have Collateral Damage, again works well with cards like Dragon Fodder, and Coat with Venom, which is an awesome combat trick in this deck, being able to use it together with all these dash cards. And then finally I've also added the Sidisi, the Sibsig Mugdraggers. Just having one Delve card I think is pretty valuable, just because your graveyard is going to be pretty full by the middle part of the game, and his ability is not irrelevant, and he's also just a good blocker while you can keep attacking. And then also Scion of Ugin, just because we don't really have a lot of evasive creatures, and having a big flyer can be a big bonus, because the opponent probably has to use his removal early on so he doesn't die, so he's less likely to have removal once you play the Scion. And then we've got Mob Rule, which can win the game out of nowhere, which is great. So yeah, this deck actually does look pretty nice, just because it's an aggressive deck with some staying power and some removal actually. Right now I've got one card too many though, so I would have to cut one card, and I think I would probably just cut the Shadow Spear, because it cannot really attack profitably into a 2-drop. So yeah, it's not that great. It's more of a card for constructed, I think. While all our other dash cards at least can trade with most 2-drops. And yeah, I think this deck is alright. I'm not sure if it's going to be fast enough to kill most other sealed decks, but I guess we would just have to play it and find out. But yeah, so this is Black Red, my take on it. We can also play our Bloodstained Mire, to show off our value and to fix our mana, because we are running cards like Mardu Scout and Ancestral Vengeance in the same deck. And I think 17 lands should be more than enough. 16 might be the right amount, because we are playing a lot of cheap cards, but I also kind of want to get up to the 4 casting cost cards consistently, and our 5 and 6 drops are quite good. So I do want to get to those, and if we run too few lands, that's not going to be the case. So I think 17 lands is still the right amount in this deck. So yeah, that's black-red. Then obviously, let me see, I forgot Kolaghan's Command, which is pretty good in an aggressive deck again. So I would have to include this card as well. At which point we have to cut another card, I think. Let's see, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. So we actually have to cut 2 cards, my bad. So let's see, what 2 cards would I cut from this deck? I could see cutting the Ancestral Vengeance, because it doesn't really combo well with a dash, just because you would lose the +1/+1 counter, and because it's a pretty slow card for a pretty minimal effect. So I could see cutting this, because we do have a few better removal spells. Then we've got, let's see, I think I like the Battle Rage still. Collateral damage seems good. All these seem pretty solid. Maybe the Skirmisher is not needed, just because it's pretty low impact. Let's see. Maybe the Icebreakers can also go, since we aren't running a lot of exploit cards after all. So yeah, I can see cutting the Icebreakers perhaps. So then the deck would look like this, and we would still have all these guys. Alesh's Vanguard is not great, but I like the interaction with the Warbringer, so I'm probably gonna include him still. So yeah, I think the deck would end up looking like this. So yeah, still the same as before, now even better with Kolaghan's Command. So yeah, let's take a look at some other color combinations here. I think I'll go for blue-white now and see how that looks. So catch you in a bit. Alright, welcome back. So I was trying to build a blue-white deck here, and I just realized we don't have nearly enough playable cards. So I even took a look at splashing red, but red is not really very good for splashing cards, since most of our red cards are all early cards that we want to play on turn 2 or 3. So a splash color is not very good at providing the colors early in the game, just because you're running a small amount of red sources in this deck, so you will be unlikely to draw those early. So splashing card like Shaman of the Great Hunt can be good, because you have some time to draw into those red sources. But even with splashing the Shaman, we're still very low on playable cards. We're very stacked on the 3-drop slot, because we have a lot of Megamorph guys. So it does have a lot of flyers, which is the one good thing about this deck, but it has very few interactive spells, not a lot of removal, just a Silk Wrap and a Reality Shift. We can't splash a card like Mob Rule because it's double red. In our multicolor cards there's nothing for us, and for fixing we only have a Swiftwater Cliffs and a Tranquil Cove. So really, blue-white does not look very good. We could even play a Territorial Rock, but that's not good enough. We've got a lot of expensive cards. Perhaps Jeskai Barricade should be in it, just to be a blocker. And I guess we could play Channel Harm, but we're already pretty stacked on 6 drops and we have a lot of Megamorphs. So let's see, how many cards is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. So we're still 3 cards short, and I'm already scraping the barrel here. So if you really want to add this, maybe So yeah, maybe a glint to protect your flyer, but this is not very good. We're just like adding cards just to come to 23, but we're adding pretty bad cards at this point. So yeah, I think just blue-white is not really the ideal deck, just because, again, it doesn't have a lot of interaction. We have to play some questionable cards, and our curve is not that great. So yeah, I think blue-white is just not the deck we want to be playing with this pool. But maybe we can still play white or blue with another color combination. So let's take a look at, let's see. Maybe green-blue can be an option. Maybe there we can splash the red, because we do have quite a few fixing in green. So yeah, let's try and build a temur deck and see how that looks. Alright, welcome back. So this is what a temur deck could look like. I also had to scrape the barrel there for the last few playable cards, but I think this deck is significantly better than the blue-white version, just because we actually get some fixing, we do get some ramp, we've got more cards that are interactive, and I think just the card quality is pretty high here, so we don't have to play as many bad cards. So looking at the 2-drops, we've got Whisperer for ramp, the Scale Guard Sentinels. We don't actually have a lot of dragons, I think only 1 or maybe 2. So it's usually just gonna be a 2/3 for 2 mana, and it's gonna be pretty difficult to cast this guy on turn 2 actually, just because we are playing 3 colors. But we do have the fixing, so maybe later in the game you can just play this as a 2/3 for 2 mana, which is still pretty cheap, so you can play this together with another card in the same turn. We've got Den Protector, which usually you're gonna want to morph first and then Megamorph to get a card back, which is very powerful. Same goes with a Stratos Dancer, so these two are pretty much from the same cycle. So you can morph them and then unmorph them, or Megamorph them for added value. And an Enoch Guide for fixing, so you can get red or blue lands. Then at the 3-drop slot we've got a lot of Megamorph, so I decided for the Nemesis, which is not great but can be good on defense while we attack in the air. Updraft Elemental, more for defense again. The Efreet to take out small creatures that can be annoying, because we don't have a lot of removal otherwise. Mastodon is pretty good in this deck. Krotik is very good. And a good flyer in the Interceptor. Ride into Being is also decent. And we've got Shu Yun, which we could activate if we get double red. So that's the 3-drop slot here. And of course, we don't have to morph all these guys. We can also just cast them on curve if that's better. Then in the 4-drops, we have some pretty sweet cards. Gurmag Drowner can sacrifice one of those early cards if they're not good anymore for some card selection and card advantage. We've got the Airy Bowmasters, which is a great card. I advise just playing this guy on turn 4 instead of morphing him, because he is pretty good on curve. If you go for the Megamorph, he's better, but maybe not better than the opponent's creatures. And then finally, Shaman of the Great Hunt, which obviously in this deck is going to be a lot better than the red-black deck, because we can actually use his ability to draw cards. So he's pretty sweet. And then we've got some expensive cards, since we do have some ramp cards, and maybe otherwise we lack some staying power in the late game. We've got Mob Rule, which is double red on the splash, which is unusual. But since we do have Enoch Guide and Map the Waste, I think this is gonna be decent, just because in a late game you might be able to get to the double red, at which point this might just end the game, which is probably worth playing a card for. And then Scion of Ugin as another decent flyer, also enables Ferocious. And we are playing Temur Battle Rage here, just to have some more interaction, combat trick, or a way to deal a lot of damage. And Reality Shift, because otherwise we don't have a lot of removal. Then we also have the Map the Wastes and a Hunt a Week. and an ethereal ambush, which is also pretty nice. And only one fixing in the land department, but yeah, there's not a lot of fixing in the sealed format, just because you get a lot more Dragons of Tarkir, which doesn't have all the dual lands. So yeah, that's gonna do it for the temur deck. So now we've covered a red-black and temur, and between the two decks I probably still like the black-red deck a little more, just because its game plan is a lot more straightforward and it's clear what you're trying to accomplish, while this deck is more of a mid-rangey deck, which most sealed decks are. But I think the red-black aggressive deck actually can more easily accomplish its plan, which is just to play its creatures early, attack, and have some good removal and finishers late game. So yeah, let's take a look at, I think, one final deck that I want to try and build here. I want to build a green-black, more defensive style deck. Alright, welcome back. So this is how the black-green deck turned out. Turns out that we just didn't have enough playables once again, because the colors are very spread out in this pool, as you may have noticed, which makes the deck building process pretty difficult. It's a lot easier if you can just exclude one of the colors and go with the other ones, but here we just had a very spread out pool, so that just means we have to splash a color, which is very feasible in green because we have Map the Wastes and Aenok Guide, as well as a fetch land here, so we can easily splash some red cards. So we went with a Shaman of the Great Hunt, which is a great card in this deck, thanks to the ability which can be activated with double green. And we also have Kolaghan's Command for some additional removal, which otherwise this deck was lacking. And I actually quite like this deck, just because it has a lot of interesting things going for it. It's got some efficient 2-drops. We've got the Hand of Silumgar, which is good early and late if it can trade up. We've got the Sentinels, which is an efficient 2-drop. The Wilds, that the Whisperer that ramps us, plus the Aenok Guide that fixes. Then in the 3-drop slot we've got some pretty nice cards. We've got Den Protector, or Maternal Witness, which is pretty awesome, just getting a card back and just being a Megamorph, which is very hard to block. The ability is very relevant and killed me at the pre-release, so it's very difficult to block for most decks. And then we've got the Krotik, just a giant creature. The Frontier Mastodon, which easily gets Ferocious going, because we have a lot of 4-drops with 4 or more power. And then the Icebreakers I just like, just as another card that we can exploit, or just as a card that can make the opponent discard. If he's holding his last big powerful card that he couldn't cast yet, then you can make him discard it. And since we are ramping a little bit, we might be able to empty your hand first. Then in the 4-drop we've got obviously the Shaman, which is great, the Kinguard, which will be active most of the time because we are playing black, the Bowmasters, which is awesome, and the Vanguard is not great, but I think we are pretty low on playables, and this guy was probably the 23rd card in this deck. Then we have the Silumgar Butcher as a removal spell, more like. We've got Scion of Ugin as another good finisher. The Mugdraggers is pretty awesome. And then for non-creature spells we've got the Code of Venom, which is a good combat trick or removal spell. We've got Kolaghan's Command as removal. Grim Contest is pretty good with all our high toughness creatures. Map the Wastes for some bolster and mana fixing. Dowsing Gloom to take out small creatures or flyers. And then Hunt a Week as a good removal spell, and also a Reach of Shadows. So all in all, I quite like this deck. So I would probably end up running this instead of the red-black deck, just because this has a little more late game. And I think we could even go for the Mob Rule in this deck, because we will have still the Aenok Guide, Map the Wastes for fixing, plus we have a Bloodstained Mire, so double red might actually be feasible. So being able to play Mob Rule as well could be pretty powerful, at which point I can probably take out the Alesh's Vanguard. So this is how the deck would look like. So yeah, I think this is going to do it for this sealed deck building exercise. It was pretty tricky, so I hope you maybe learned something or at least enjoyed it. So I think for now I want to thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and as always, have a nice day.